Hunter x Hunter is a fantastic anime and one of my all-time favourites. However, this wasn't always the case. I was actually initially very disappointed with this anime, mainly due to expectations. A lot of people compare this to Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is, in my opinion, one of the all-time best anime ever. So I was a little disappointed at first with the Hunter exam arc, which was a little too long for me. It just dragged on and kept going and going and going, and there was just too many exams. Like, be real with yourself now. Who actually remembers the Food Wars exam? Okay, who actually remembers that exam that was like 2 episodes long? Do you even remember who left? Do you remember who got kicked out of the Hunter exam during that Food Wars section of the anime? It's just really boring. Another thing is that the power system is just not explained at all during this arc, which is okay, it gets explained later, but it does lead to some moments where you're kind of questioning how characters can do things. Probably the biggest example is Hisoka. Like, I mean, just look at this scene here. He has just got rid of this guy's arms, whereas no one else can do anything. Like, I don't even know what's going on in this scene, because this guy's arms have just randomly turned into flowers or red clubs or whatever, and it's just not explained for a long time, which kind of leaves you just kind of questioning what's going on and being not really sure. It does get explained eventually, but it's for the first arc, you're very confused. However, the characters right from the get-go are great, except for Kurapika. I think he's really dull in this first arc, but that's okay, because once again, he gets a lot better in a later arc, which I'll get to. Gon, Killua, and Hisoka are really great in this arc. Hisoka's probably the standout character. He's the character that I think everyone instantly likes. But personally, Leorio was my favourite. I feel really, really sad knowing that the voice actor for Leorio passed away, I think, in 2020 from cancer. So it's a shame to know that even if Hunter x Hunter comes back, he won't be coming back to voice the character. Really upsetting to hear. Just to briefly touch on the Zoldyck arc, which comes right after the Hunter exam arc. It's okay. I actually really liked it. I liked the part where the guy was messing around with the coins, but I see why a lot of people don't really like it that much. The Heaven's Arena arc comes along and is actually better than the Hunter exam arc. I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of fighting and I'm not really a fan of tournament arcs. I know that's very blasphemous to say considering how popular tournament arcs are, but personally it wasn't for me. Another thing is that finally they do explain the power system, and I'm going to say that the power system in Hunter x Hunter is probably my favourite of all time. I think it's really, really good, but I still couldn't really get into the show as much as a lot of other people. I was kind of left a little confused about what was going on. I didn't really care that much until this happened. It's not often in anime that you can pinpoint the exact moment that you fell in love with an anime, but this is it. This is the exact moment where I was like, okay, I'm fully on board with this series now. This fight is one of my favourite fights in all of anime, and that's very important for me because I don't usually care about fights or just good animation in general. It's not usually a deciding factor into what I enjoy, but for some reason this fight was just so great and just so out of left field for me that I just completely enjoyed it, and it changed my entire perspective on the series as a whole, because from this point on I absolutely fell in love with Hunter x Hunter. So next up we're going to move on to the Yorknu arc, which is just fantastic. Kurapika finally gets the limelight, and he goes from that dull, boring character that not many people really cared about in the first arc to probably one of the best characters, if not the best character of the anime. He's just so good in this arc, and it's so great to see him get some character development. On top of that, I'm going to say the villains in this arc are the best up to this point. The Phantom Troop is just so good. I just love them. I love the whole darker tone and the implications it has on the characters, especially Kurapika. The whole arc is just so great. There's a little bit more info on the power system involving Kurapika's chain, so it's not just the characters that are developing, it's the world building, it's the storytelling, all of that's developing as well. I will say though, I'm not the biggest fan of Chrollo Lucifer. I know a lot of people really like that character and say he's really compelling, but personally I didn't really care. He felt like your typical I'm a serial killer but also really intelligent kind of villain. He wasn't as unique as some people make him out to be, at least in my opinion anyway. But then going on from the York New arc, we kind of take a step back in terms of narrative and just overall quality in the Greed Island arc. It's not terrible or anything, it's pretty good. Again, it's Hunter x Hunter, but it's just not as great as the York New arc. The villain's really forgettable. I can't even remember his name. I think he was like a bomber or something, and he had 2 bomber friends with him or something. It's not much to say about it, to be honest. It just wasn't a great arc compared to what came before. Although I will say the dodgeball section was really good, and that's really memorable. But now that we're done with the Greed Island arc, because there's really not much to say about it, it's a pretty forgettable arc, we then go on to the greatest arc in all of anime, the Chimera Ant arc. I think this arc is perfect. I don't know how you could improve this arc in any way. It's probably the best arc I've ever seen in an anime up to this point, and I've seen quite a few. The villains are great, the new characters are good and entertaining. There's so many characters they introduce in this arc, and yet you really feel for a lot of them because the anime becomes really unpredictable. You're not sure who's going to live, you're not sure who's going to die. It makes it really entertaining and just great as a whole. The consequences are permanent. Was it Pam, the character? Something happens to her. You see people get turned into meatballs, which is just, horrific to see. And then as well as all of that, you've got the villains and the heroes questioning themselves. The heroes being like, are we really the heroes? The villains realizing that they don't really want to kill the humans. It's just really good. And then there's this great contrast between Gon and Meruem. Meruem is such a great villain. A lot of people say this anyway, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that I think it too. But just to see the contrast between those two characters of Gon going off the deep end, becoming this monstrous person, whereas Meruem becomes more and more human, is such a great contrast. Honestly, I could make an entire video talking about the Chimera Ant arc. It's so good. And then finally, we have the election arc, which I also love. I feel like I love this arc more than most people. It was great to see Hisoka and of course Leorio back again after missing out the Chimera Ant arc, which is 40% of the anime, by the way. 40% of the anime is the Chimera Ant arc, so no wonder I love that anime as a whole. The stakes are much lower, which makes it kind of, in my opinion, a lot more enjoyable, and you can kind of relax for this next arc, kind of just taking what's going on. It's more of a breather after the hecticness of the Chimera Ant arc. It was great to see Gon's douchebag of a dad, finally get to see him, and you kind of get to wrap up Gon's arc, and it's a great send-off for the anime. I don't really like the Killua sister storyline. It's not as interesting as Leorio's. I mean, I like Leorio more than Killua, so that might be why. But a lot of people have told me that they don't really like Killua's sister storyline that much. But honestly, it was a great send-off for the anime. Great to see Gon's story wrap up. As far as I'm aware, Gon's not in the manga anymore, so who knows what's going to happen down the line. Hopefully the mangaka is able to finish the manga. I've heard it's on its longest hiatus in quite some time. But he seems like the kind of guy who's had like a lot of really major health issues, especially for a mangaka. A lot of mangakas have a lot of health issues, but it seems this one has had some really, really bad ones. So hopefully his health gets better. I'd rather him have a nice, long, happy life than a short one trying to make a manga for an anime for us to enjoy. So that's more important. Hopefully he gets better. Hopefully he is able to complete Hunter x Hunter, because it's a masterpiece, and I think he himself wants to get it finished as well. So hopefully he does get to do that, but as long as he takes care of himself, that's all that really matters. But anyway, that's all I have to say on Hunter x Hunter. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.